So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Welcome back here, BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Tuesday, September 14th. Hope everyone's having a day so far and a good rest of their day. Yesterday, it is in fact Tuesday, September 14th here today, coming off of another big night in sports last night, and what a game it was in the Monday Night Football as the Las Vegas Raiders were able to defeat the Baltimore Ravens 33-27 in a thriller. The Raiders with a touchdown in overtime, Derek Carr to Zay Jones for the win, and really just an excellent game. Really was a great game, a lot of fun to watch, really enjoyed it, and big win for the Raiders. And the Ravens have a lot to clean up, and we're going to get to all of that along with a lot of other stuff on the podcast. But wrapped up week one yesterday in the NFL with the Raiders-Ravens game. We also had a lot of baseball on yesterday, so a lot to get to today. But it was a great game last night. And that cannot be understated. That cannot be, at all. No one can disagree. Last night was an excellent game, and as I mentioned kind of earlier on the podcast the other day, there were so many good games week one. There were so many games that I did not expect, to play out like they did, that have gone on and really, really have been great games. I mean, you look at the Lions-Niners game. You look at the game with the Steelers-Bills, an upset. The Dolphins-Patriots. That was a good game. The Saints upsetting the Packers, the Bengals upsetting the Vikings, Texans upsetting the Jaguars, now the Raiders upsetting the Ravens. So there's been so many good games week one, and if week one tells us anything, this year we are in for a lot of upsets, and we are in for a lot of teams that maybe were not expected to do much, or we are in for those teams to do a lot. And based off of what I've seen so far week one, this looks like a season that could come down to the underdogs. And this looks like a season where the underdogs could be big and the underdogs can come through. So last night was a great game for Monday Night Football. Baseball was also on yesterday. The Yankees were able to get the job done against the Twins. I mean, just a very big win. A huge win for the Yankees, and the Mets got absolutely smoked by the Cardinals 7-0. Mets allowed 15 hits and 7 runs, and the Mets didn't help themselves as they allowed 6 hits, or they only had 6 hits, and they also had an error. So, so much for the Mets, looking good against the Yankees and now going against the Cardinals, and they looked like they're back to their old selves with that 7-0 loss yesterday. And the Yankees got the job done against the Twins. It was an extra inning win. Gary Sanchez with the walk-off. I mean, that's one of those games that, let's say we do go on and make a run, and I will get to the Yankees in the second topic here. Let's say the Yankees do go on and make a run. I'm not saying win the World Series, but let's say they go on, make the playoffs, and I don't know, from here on out, starting tonight in Baltimore, you go on and win, 10 of your next, or even 8 of your next 10. And you find your way back into the playoffs, and you're playing really good baseball, you're winning games. I mean, the Yankees' schedule coming up extremely weak, so it's not like we have a gauntlet of a schedule. So if we are winning, it wouldn't really surprise me. But let's say you still go on and win, and out of the final, 18, 20 games that left in the season, you win 15 of them. That could be the game. Right there, what we saw yesterday with the Yankees-Twins. That could be the spark. That could be the game that really lights a fire under your team, lights a fire under the roster, and kind of like a wake-up call. Like, hey, we're still in this thing. We have the ability to do it. We saw it unfold yesterday with the win. Now let's continue to build on that. Now let's continue to win games and get back into the race and get back into the playoffs and see if we can make something happen in October. That's what the Yankees' thought process has got to be now. And tonight we open up a 3-game set against Baltimore. We lost 2 out of 3 against Baltimore last time, so this is one of these games where you got to go out, you got to play this team like it's the Red Sox out there. You got to play like it's a really good game. You can't get caught looking ahead. I mean, if you look at the Yankees' upcoming schedule here, their schedule is getting easier. It's teams that we can beat. I mean, no one should really be afraid of Baltimore. Sure, Baltimore can win, they beat us, but these are games that the Yankees should be winning. And we start up a 3-game set tonight against Baltimore. We should be winning these games. These are games that we should win. And if we get the job done in these games, we'll be back in the playoffs. But that's it. This season is going to come down to whether or not the Yankees, win the games they need to win. Because let's be honest here. No matter how good or bad the Yankees is, the Baltimores are the worst team in baseball. These are games that we should be winning. And, I think we have a very good chance of winning as well. These are games we should be winning, is against Baltimore. So that's starting tonight. These are games we need to win. If we want to make the playoffs, you need to win these games on your schedule that are against bad teams. You need to take care of the bad teams, and then you need to get the job done. This is not a series that you can get caught looking ahead. That can't happen. You got to get the job done against Baltimore, and we'll see if they can do that tonight of a 3-game set in Baltimore. That will close out the season series for the Yankees and the Orioles. So Yankees-Orioles tonight, Mets-Cardinals tonight as well. Both of those, Yankees the first game of the 3-game set. And obviously yesterday was the the rescheduling game of the game that got rained out again with the Yankees Twins. So that game got rained out last time they played, so they finished off that game yesterday. And then this game today was a regular schedule game, 3-game set against Baltimore today until Thursday, and then you head into the weekend as well. So the Yankees, this is a big week, against Baltimore, team you need to beat, a team you should beat, a team that you should have no issue beating. You got Cole back on the mound tonight, your ace. That should be a very, very, if you're a Yankee fan today, if there was optimism, it should be this series. You got Cole back on the mound today. You got to feel confident about that. This is a series the Yankees need to win because, this is a series where you look at the schedule and this is a golden opportunity for the Yankees just to take 3 games. That's what you got to do. So Yankees, Orioles today, along with the Mets and Cardinals. All right, let's get to the topics for today's podcast. The packed podcast, as always, here on this Tuesday. We're going to start off with the recap of the Ravens-Raiders game last night. Just an excellent game. It was a great game to watch, start to finish. Actually, take that back. It was a great game. It was excellent. It was awesome. It was a great game. Maybe I take a little bit back of it was great start to finish because the game started out really slow. It looked like the Ravens were going to get crush the Raiders. The came out with no life. They didn't look good. And the Ravens took a quick 14-0 lead early, and the Raiders answered. And the Raiders, had a big fourth quarter led by, the OT winner. And the Raiders get the job done. And, I'm not saying that the Ravens took them lightly and stuff, but, the Ravens did have some good cushion, and, it was one of those things where, they might have got a little light, they might have got a little easy, and, the Raiders were able to fight and claw their way back into last night's game, and the Raiders got the job done. A big win early in the season for Vegas. And then we're going to get to the Yankees update. Want to just give you an update on the Yankees. A ton of football these past couple days. Football on Thursday, football on Friday, football yesterday, football today. So I want to get to some baseball. I want to get to the Yankees. Tomorrow will be a day of just talking sports. I think there's a couple NBA things I kind of want to get to. But like I said, there's a lot I want to get to. Only so much of it I do because I only talk about 2 topics a day. So we'll see how all that goes. But Yankees update. Preview the series against Baltimore, the whole situation, look at the wild card, look at our upcoming schedule, and, as the season gets closer and closer and closer to the end, we will see how the Yankees do down the stretch here. And then we'll get to the New York sports update as well. Yankees, Mets today. No football on today. It's gonna feel weird already. Had football on Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, then yesterday, so no football on today. But you got baseball. You got the Yankees, you got the Orioles, you got the Mets, and you got the Mets Cardinals. So that should be good. But with all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. Alrighty, so last night's game between the Raiders and the Ravens was an excellent game, and it started off the way it looked like. Well, first of all, before I get to that game, Week 1 is officially now in the books as the the Raiders and the Ravens last night finished off Week 1, and the Raiders took down the Baltimore Ravens by a score of 33-27. So just to wrap up my game picks for Week 1, it was a tough week for me in terms of my game picks. I went 7-9 on my game picks, so it was definitely a tough week. Last season, I went 10-6 Week 1. This year, I went 7-9. But as I mentioned, there was a lot of upsets. There was another upset last night, so it was definitely a tough week for me to pick. But I went 7-9 this week, and now we had the Week 2, and I got to get back on the right track because I don't want to sink too early. My goal this season was to get to 200 right picks, and I've already started off on the wrong foot. So definitely Week 2 needs to be better. But either way, so I went 7-9 overall on my game picks, and if the Ravens would have won last night, I would have won 8-8. And, so on and so forth. So 7-9 right now, Week 1, 7-9 overall, and now Week 2, we'll see what Week 2 has in store. But in terms of last night's game, it was a great game. And, for my own sake, watching that game, early on, it looked like the Ravens were going to win. And I thought the Ravens were going to win. I thought they were going to win pretty easily. Or not pretty easy. I said close. I said earlier in this week, I said it was probably going to be a little bit, a little bit of a further, maybe a higher scoring game. But the Raiders got running back issues, and we saw that on display last night, where you have your top 3 running backs where they all tore their ACLs. Hill done. You had, Gus Edwards done, and the big name Dobbins all done for the season. You had to go out, pick up Freeman, pick up Bell. Neither were in the game last night as they're still, getting acclimated, and, they just joined the team a couple days ago, so not going to play in the game just yet. They got to learn the playbook and all that. They'll probably be out there this weekend, though. But the Ravens early actually looked pretty good. The Ravens early looked like this was going to be one of those games where the Ravens just took a early commanding lead. It looked like the Ravens were going to really, it looked like they looked good. They were taking a commanding lead early. The Ravens are up 14-0 early in this game. And, I'm sitting there watching the game, and I'm like, this thing's going to get out of hand. Raiders' offense didn't look good. Their defense was letting up scores. Ravens' offense, for all the injuries to running back, which is what they do a lot of times, their offense actually looked really solid. Tyson Williams had a really nice run. He had that big 35-yard run to get them on the board. And then you had Lamar Jackson to the touchdown to Marquise Hollywood Brown. And, everything was going right for the Ravens. And, in that moment of the game, that second quarter part, I'm like, yeah, Raiders are done. They're not coming back. Their offense didn't look good. Derek Carr didn't look good. Derek Carr made a lot of really bad throws early in the game. Just a lot of misreads. Then you had couple, I think the first drive, they were driving a little bit. You had the snap. You had the bad snap. There was a lot of miscues on the Raiders offense, which is to be expected for Week 1 of the season. There's rustiness, your first time getting really back out there in game action, that actually counts. Because a lot different between the preseason to the regular season. Preseason means nothing, you're playing against backups, and regular season means something, and you're playing against, high leverage, really good players. And even though the Raiders, I don't like this matchup in terms of names because it's so similar. But the Ravens secondary actually did a good job early on holding down the Raiders. Sure, the Raiders aren't an electric offense by any means, but they did a good enough job, and with being without Marcus Peters, who's your best corner and arguably one of the better corners in the league, they did a good job early on. And then, the Raiders come back a little bit, 14-10 going into half, and then the Ravens come out, add another 3, and then the Raiders really come all the way storming out in the fourth quarter. 17 points in the fourth quarter. Derek Carr was much better. Offense was better. And defense made a lot of big plays. It might go unnoticed because of the fact that, Derek Carr to Zay Jones to win the game and the comeback and down 2 scores. And the way the Ravens early in that game were just commanding the game. It was just like they were controlling the game and they were doing everything right. And the Raiders just looked lost. They really did. Not good drives, letting up touchdowns. Just overall, they looked terrible. And the Ravens looked like the team that came to play. And the second half was the complete opposite. The Raiders outscore the Ravens 17-13 in the second half. And then you go into overtime and you get the touchdown to Zay Jones. And I don't know what was said. Something had to be said because there was no way that John Gruden or anybody did not say anything, something had to be said. Because this Raiders team we saw in the first half, where they couldn't move the ball, they weren't doing anything, they were terrible. I mean, they were awful in the first half. They were. And, especially against a secondary that losing their best player in Marcus Peters, you would think they would use that to their advantage. Well, they didn't do that. They did not use that to their advantage. It looked like the same secondary that they would be rolling out with Marcus Peters. As a matter of fact, there was 2 times in a row there almost picked off almost picked off Carr, and, that didn't happen, but some bad throws early. And the Ravens really turned things around, or Raiders rather. That's really getting kind of frustrating. But the Raiders turned things around and were able to get the job done 33-27. And, you look at the Ravens and you look at what they did. Jackson this will probably go unnoticed because of just the fact of how good, the offense was. And this is kind of what I say a little bit earlier. But everyone's going to talk about, the Raiders and their offense, and, Derek Carr to Zay Jones, and Zay Jones, who does nothing really on this team, came out and made a big impact, scored the game-winning touchdown. And I understand everyone's going to want to say that, and I get that. But it should not go unnoticed that Lamar Jackson fumbled 3 times in this game. 3 times. I mean, that is a very hard thing to do for any player, let alone Lamar Jackson, who runs the ball a lot, as we all know, but he takes good care of the ball when he's running. He does not fumble a lot. He keeps the ball. He'll take hits. Yesterday was an extreme rare occurrence where Jackson fumbled 3 times. 3 times he fumbled. And personally, I think that was just a sign of fatigue, a sign of tiredness, a sign of just running out of gas. Because let's be honest here. Not to take away from Tyson Williams. He had a good game, 9 carries for 65 yards. But Lamar Jackson threw the ball 30 times. And he also led the team in rushing. He also led the team in rushing yards and carries. 12 carries for 86 yards. He threw the ball 30 times for 235 yards and a touchdown. He also endured 3 sacks. So I think those 3 fumbles were a sign of I don't think this should be a concern. What I do think it was, though, was a sign of fatigue. And it's not a concern for Jackson. It's more so of a concern of this running game. Because if the Ravens want any chance this season to do something, go to the playoffs again, whatever it is, win the AFC North, I don't care, whatever it is, they're going to need a better running game. Because Tyson Williams did his job. But other than that, Murray and Cannon, really didn't do much. Murray had 10 carries for 28 yards. I don't know why Latavius Murray had more carries than Williams. But they're going to need to get this run game really figured out. Or else those fumbles will continue to happen. Because those fumbles that we saw yesterday, that was not Lamar Jackson. What that was a sign of fatigue. And that was a sign of him just plain and simple running out of gas. That's what happened there. And the Raiders were able to take advantage of it and win 33-27. And like I said, I don't know what was said in the locker room. I really don't. Because whatever it was, it worked. Because this Raiders team looked flat in the first half. And they were able to come out and completely, you talk about turning the page. They changed the book. They changed everything. They did not just turn the page. They changed the complete trajectory of that game. That game was this for the Ravens. That game starts off 50-50. Ravens started to go like this. Raiders were like this. And all of a sudden, Raiders maybe went like this a little bit at the end of the half, but still not much. Maybe the Ravens like that a little bit. And then it was all of a sudden Raiders. This was the Ravens, and the Raiders just skyrocketed, and the Raiders got hot in that game at the right time and took control late. And, I know that I said earlier that Marcus Peters, their secondary still made some plays. They still did look good. But that play to Zay Jones, that was a simple busted coverage. That was just busted coverage. Zay Jones was wide open. That cannot happen. If you're the Ravens and you want to have a good season, those are the things that can't happen. Especially in a big situation in the game. Overtime, next score wins. That cannot happen. And it did. And the Ravens fall 33-27. Alrighty, another quick thing here I wanted to add was here's my thing with the Raiders. I'm not doubting their talent, because they got some talent on the roster. There's no doubt about it, offensively and defensively. Darren Wallers, Ruggs, Hunter Renfrow, Josh Jacobs. Derek Carr is not a bad quarterback. Is he Patrick Mahomes? No, but he's not a bad quarterback. He's average. I would say he's about average. Now, last night he was above average. He threw for 435 yards. He also did throw the ball 56 times, but still, he threw the ball for 435 yards. It doesn't matter if you throw the ball 300 times. You still threw for 435 yards, rather. But this is the thing with the Raiders. Every year we go through this, where they start to win the first couple weeks. They maybe get a big win early in the season, and then the trains start to fall off. And this can't happen again this year. Because what we've seen in past years is, Raiders, they're back, this, John Gruden, Derek Carr, all this, and the wheels fall off towards the end of the year. The Raiders need to keep this up. What they showed in that second half, they looked like a true team that could do damage. They looked really good offensively and really good defensively. And they were going up against a good defense, the Ravens. I know Marcus Peters tore his ACL, but still a very good defense. Campbell, you have Houston. You have Chuck Clark. You have a lot of really good guys on that defense. And they tore through it in the second half. And what we saw there out of Raiders, that needs to happen all year long. Because every single year with the Raiders, we talk about, can this team do this? And what if this team? No. Every year they fall apart late in the year. This year needs to be different, or else things will be changed. So they started off the season on a high note, and they need to continue that high. Because if they don't, things are going to get wild. Because now your schedule coming up still isn't easy. You have the Steelers coming up, not going to be easy. Dolphins, not going to be easy. Chargers, not going to be easy. Bears, that's a win. Broncos is, after what they showed against the Giants, And you have the Eagles, and you have your bye week, and so on and so forth. So this Raiders schedule is pretty difficult coming up. But what they did last night, especially in the second half, if they continue to do that, this team looked really good. It did. And I don't want to overreact, but every year we go through this with the Raiders, where they start off good, and then they fall apart. This year has got to be different. And last night was their first really true comeback. Because I'll tell you what, this is a Raiders team that's been through so much past couple seasons, where they look like they're going to make the playoffs, and then the wheels just fall off at the last second. And it's one of those things where it's like, they just tend to struggle to really get rolling. Like, they get rolling, they win 3 out of 4, they start off the season, 5-2, and then they'll lose 2 straight, 5-4. Then they'll win, and they'll be like 7-6. And then they're like 2 wins away from making the playoffs. And then they end up losing those 2 games, and they finish out the year, instead of finishing out the year 9-7 or 9-7 and making a wild card, or 10-6 and making a wild card, instead they finish out in the year 8-8, 7-9, and they don't do well. And they never fight back either. Like, if they're 7-7, they just seem to just lose it. Last night they fought back, and they did really well. So 33-27, they win. Final in overtime. Let's go through some of the numbers here. Lamar Jackson yesterday, 19-30, 235 yards, 12.4 was his average per completion. 1 touchdown. He did not throw an interception, 3 sacks, and his overall rating was 98.6. So Jackson did his job, and he did everything he could. The Ravens just could not hold on. As for some of the rushing numbers, Jackson yesterday had 12 carries for 86 yards. No touchdowns. He had 3 fumbles, and he lost all of them. That just can't happen. Usually there isn't turnover issues with Jackson, but last night there was. Tyshawn Williams had 9 carries, 65 yards, and a touchdown. He had the big 35-yard touchdown to open up the scoring. Latavius Murray had 10 carries for 28 yards and a touchdown as well. And then Trent Cannon and Marquise Brown both got involved. Marquise Brown had a little bit of like a jet sweep thingy, so he only ran the ball once, and Cannon ran the ball twice. So your main runners were Jackson, Williams, and Murray. As for receiving yesterday, as crazy as it may sound, Sammy Watkins led the team in receiving. He had 8 targets, 4 catches for 96 yards. Marquise Brown was behind him with 6 catches, 6 targets, 69 yards. He also had a touchdown. I will tell you this, you got to feel good if you're a Ravens fan, because Marquise Brown's had a little bit of issues so far in his career in terms of just, overall being consistent and being solid. Yesterday, gets the ball thrown to him 6 times, did not drop it, were able to make some nice catches, made all the plays he needed to make. Marquise Brown did his end of the job. Tyshawn Williams had 4 targets, 3 catches, 29 yards. Mark Andrews, 5 targets, 3 catches, 20 yards. And there were some other guys that also got involved as well. But those were your main impact guys in the receiving game for the Baltimore Orioles. And as for the Las Vegas Raiders, Derek Carr went 34 of 56 for 435 yards, 12.8 was average, 2 touchdowns. He did throw a pick. He endured 3 sacks, and his rating was 89.5. Josh Jacobs for rushing. Josh Jacobs had 10 carries, 34 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He was the main rusher. Mariota, Drake, and Carr did have some rushes, but nothing major. Josh Jacobs led the way with 10 carries for 34 yards. As for receiving, Darren Waller did what he usually does. 19 targets, 10 catches, 105 yards, and a touchdown. Really is wild how much he gets targeted and how many catches he makes. 10 catches. I mean, I said this in fantasy. Like, that's why he's so good in a PPR league. 10 catches yesterday. I mean, that's big. Edwards had 5 targets, 4 catches for 81 yards. Renfrow, 9 targets, 6 catches for 70 yards. Kenyon Drake, 5 catches, 5 targets, 5 catches, 59 yards. Ruggs had 46 yards. Zay Jones had 46 yards, and he had the game-winning touchdown. And Aaron Ingold had 22 yards for himself as well. So those were some of the guys there. Obviously, Darren Waller led the way. And I've always said this, like, when you have a good tight end, Kelsey, Andrews, you go over to the Niners and you have Kittle, and then you go here to the Raiders and you have Darren Waller. It's almost like having another receiver, especially when you have a guy like Waller that can stretch the field and you could target him a lot. Because there's a lot of tight ends nowadays, and we see it a ton with the position, where they're limited to only doing certain things. Like, oh, this guy catches a 3-yard route and gets 6 yards. No, Waller can do a lot. He's very flexible. And that's what's so good about a receiver, because there's a lot of receivers out there that, because there is a lot of flexibility on this Raiders. If you look at the receiving core of the Raiders, there is a lot of flexibility. You have Waller that can do a lot. He can catch a deep ball. He can also catch close and, take it himself. He's a little bit like a receiver. You have Renfrow, who's kind of small and fast, and when he gets the ball, he's more of a close kind of guy. A 5-yard in route, a 5-yard mesh route across the middle, makes it a 10-yard gain. And you have Henry Ruggs, who utilizes his speed, a deep ball threat, but also can utilize his speed across the middle of the field as well and really be that kind of downhill type player. So they have a good mixture of talent in that core. They have a lot of different guys that all complement and work well together. Carr to Waller, very good. And Waller's very consistent as well. Yesterday was not probably his brightest game either. 19 targets, 10 catches. He obviously 9 incompletions, but there's some days where he gets targeted like 15, 16 times, and he makes 12 of those catches. And to have a quarterback rely on a tight end like that and get that consistency is really big. Henry Ruggs still hasn't fully found his footing in the NFL yet. Last season had moments, but he struggled for the most part. And yesterday was a little bit of a slow game for him as well, but he still had 46 receiving yards. He got targeted 5 times and he had 2 catches, but he had 46 receiving yards. And he's a guy that you could really get it deep. You look at the numbers here. The numbers show you everything. Darren Waller averaged 10.5 yards per catch yesterday. That's a pure example of getting the ball in the middle of the field and, maybe making a 7-yard pass into a 10, 11, 12-yard gain. And if you look at Ruggs, well, his average was 23 yards per catch. He's a deep ball guy. He's a guy that can turn a 20-yard play into a 60-yard play. That's how electric his speed is. So this is a Raiders team that you look at their receiving core and you look at their tight end, really underrated in terms of just mixture, in terms of just guys that work well together. And Carr has a lot of different options. He's got Waller consistent and catch the ball a lot. You also got Ruggs that might not get as many catches, but if you need a big gain, you need some speed, Ruggs can give that to you. And I think when the Raiders kind of created it, that's what they got. Sure, do they have the most flashy names ever? No. You don't have DeAndre Hopkins and Devontae Adams and all those guys, but you sure got some guys, and you got some guys that can do some damage. And we saw that yesterday with Darren Waller, and then Zay Jones as well got the touchdown. As for the defense, Max Crosby yesterday had 2 sacks, and Carl Nassib had a sack. Max Crosby has been really, really good for the Raiders. A guy who's been through a lot in his career, and to be out there playing at the high level he's been very good for them. And as for the Ravens, Patrick Queen got a sack, McPhee got a sack, and Oweh Ohei got a sack as well. So the rookie getting on the board there. And Everett got the interception off of Derek Carr. You look at the secondary, I mean, they did their job. I mean, Clark, 3 passes defended. Marlon Humphrey, pass defended. Everett had an interception and a pass defended. The secondary did their job. It just came down to, in the last play of the game, Derek Carr found an open Zay Jones, and that's what happens. And that's always what happens in sports. And I try to always, cover everything. Sometimes I do overshadow things, like maybe if this guy made a really big play in the game, but then something else big happens late in the game, like it's going to get, forgotten about. And a lot of people probably will forget about the fact that the Ravens actually played well in the secondary all game long, because Zay Jones, if you didn't see the play, you got to go back and watch it. Zay Jones was he was wide. He was open. He was open. I wouldn't say he was wide open because there was a defender around him, but he was open. It was an easy catch. I don't want to say that, because I'm sure if I was out there, I don't know if it would have been the same result, but you get what I'm saying. For him, it was an easy catch, and it was an easy throw and catch. Carr had time, threw it to Jones. It was a busted coverage in the secondary, and that can't happen if the Raiders, if you're the Ravens. But at the same time, if you look at the big picture and you look at how the whole game went, their secondary, the fact that they didn't have Marcus Peters, actually played really well. And sure, Derek Carr's not a great quarterback, but still, it's not like you're going up against, a really bad quarterback. You are going against a guy that's been in the league and he's got experience. So, a lot to take from this game. And we finish off week 1 with an upset. And if week 1 is telling us anything, it's telling us that it's screaming at us saying, hey, the underdogs are going to have a big year this year. Because there was a lot of underdogs that won in week 1. Raiders won. Dolphins won. Saints won, Bengals won, Texans won, Cardinals won, Eagles won, Steelers won, Chargers won. A lot of underdogs got the job done in week 1. Some of the notable ones being the Raiders last night, Saints crushing the Packers. That's probably the biggest, not just because they smoked the Packers, but the fact that Jameis Winston, who so many, including myself, are so iffy around whether or not he's the guy there to replace Breeze, he threw 5 touchdowns. So, a lot happened in week 1. It was actually a great week 1, I will tell you that. Although my game picks didn't benefit from all the upsets, but it was still a very good week 1. And the way week 1 went, there was a lot of close games. 27-24, 41-33, 23-16, 20-16, 31-29. A lot of close games. Like last night, how the week started with the Patriots winning it on the final drive, and how things happened last night just was a pure example of how week 1 was. It was a week of a lot of close games, a lot of teams that weren't expected to win, and a lot of really close games that not only were they close, but they came down to the final drive in the Buccaneers-Cowboys point, or like I said last night, won the game with the touchdown in overtime. And the Raiders moved to 1-0. And you look at their schedule, it really doesn't get much. It doesn't really get that easy, but they do get a win under their belt. And if you're the Ravens today, you also got a little bit of a tough schedule on your hand. You got the Chiefs coming up next week, and then you have the Lions, which is probably a win. The Broncos probably will be a win. Colts will probably, if you can find a way to contain their offense, that would probably be a win. And Chargers, Bengals probably will be wins, but they're not going to be easy. So, we'll see how the Ravens do as well. But Raiders get the job done, and the Raiders move to 1-0 on the season. And now we look ahead to week 2, and a lot of good matchups coming up in week 2. And a lot of teams that were not able to get the job done in week 1 looking for their first win in week 2. And we'll kick off week 2 Thursday night, Giants, Washington. We'll see if the first New York team of the season could get the win. Jets, Bills, Giants, we all know were not able to get the job done over the weekend, so we will see who can get on the board first in terms of New York football and wins. Alrighty, with all that being said, that will do it for the Ravens-Raiders recap. And coming up next here, I wanted to get into the Yankees update, get into their playoff chances, the playoff update, their schedule, the win yesterday, and a lot more involving the New York Yankees. We'll get to that and much more involving the Yankees and the MLB coming up next. Alrighty, so welcome you back here up at the podcast here. So the New York Yankees, who have had a very up and down year this year, got the job done yesterday by a score of 6-5. Gary Sanchez with the walk-off. That game was rescheduled, a make-up from it was supposed to be an August 22nd game. They were able to make it up yesterday, and the Yankees got the win against the Twins 6-5 on a Gary Sanchez walk-off. So the Yankees hit the 80 win mark yesterday. They are 80-64 on the season. They're 9 games back of first place, and they are 2-8 in their last 10 and are on the 1-game win streak. And right now, they have a 55.2% chance to make the playoffs. Yes, you've heard that right. 55.5% chance to make the playoffs. Now, if the season were to end today, in terms of percentage points, the Yankees would be in. The Yankees would have to go to Toronto for a 1-game wild card series if the season were to end today. So right now, the Yankees, who entered yesterday on the outside looking in, got some help. And now if the season would to end today, the Yankees would go to Toronto for a 1-game wild card game. And the winner of that would move on, and we would have to see how everything else plays out. So as it stands right now, just kind of the overall here, Blue Jays are +1 up. Then it's the Yankees at 5 in, and the Red Sox are also in, but the Yankees technically be in because they have a better winning percentage. Then Seattle's 2 games back. Then Oakland's 2.5, and then it's everybody else who's done. You get to the Angels and Cleveland and so on and so forth. All those teams have no chance. So out of the teams that have a chance, Yankees, Blue Jays, Red Sox, Mariners, Oakland, all have realistic chances, all have, big games ahead of them, all have games that mean a lot, and frankly, the next 2 weeks here could very well depend on who makes it. Now, I know a lot of people have been talking about, when will it be decided, and do you think, do you think there's going to be a decision soon, in terms of who's going to be in and who's not going to be? If you had to ask me, I think it's going to really come down to the final couple games. And the reason I say is because the Yankees still have to play the Blue Jays again. We also still have to play the Red Sox again. So we still have to play 3 more against the Red Sox and 3 more against Toronto, both of those on the road. Then we have to play 3 against Tampa. That will be home. That's the final game that's the final series of the season. That series will wrap up on October 3rd. So if you had to ask me, I know a lot of people say, it's already decided, this and that, or it's going to be decided this weekend or whatever. I think it's going to come down to how the Yankees do in that Boston Red Sox series and mostly that the Toronto Blue Jay series. Because if, let's just say, through those 6 games, they go 4-2, you're talking about, okay, they're probably going to be in. Or if they go the opposite and go 2-4, well, it's probably not going to look good and they're probably done. That's how I see it. So that's when I personally think the season will probably be decided, and that's when I think what it's gonna come down to. And I think all of us Yankee fans this season, I've kind of been expecting that, it coming down to those kind of final couple games, because we all knew the Red Sox, not really, but Red Sox, how the season started the season. You look at the Yankees, you look at the way the Blue Jays have played, you look at the Rays, and then the Blue Jays and all that stuff. So I think we kind of went into the season with the anticipation of those games, those series were probably going to mean a lot down the stretch. But if you look at the Yankees' schedule right now, and the Yankees have not played their best baseball recently, and they haven't. They won yesterday, and I understand that, but they haven't played their best baseball recently. They're 2-8 in their last 10. They do win yesterday, but now you got a lot of games coming up that are very, very winnable. And I know there's going to be Yankee fans out there that are going to be like, you got to watch out for this and that, and this team could upset us and this and that. But if you're a Yankee fan today, the expectation has to be you got to win this series against the Orioles. You do. At worst, you got to take 2 out of 3. That's at worst. You can't go into Baltimore and lose 2 out of 3 again. You got to, at worst, take 2 out of 3. At least take 2 out of 3. Because we have to sweep Baltimore. This is a series. This is a team that stinks. They're not good. They're a bad team. If the Yankees do sweep Baltimore, Baltimore will have 100 losses on the season. They don't have any chance at the playoffs. Their season is over. It's over. And there's no coming back for the Orioles. They're going to have another 100-loss season, and they're still in a deep rebuild. So this has to be a big series for the Yankees in terms of sweeping or at least taking 2 out of 3. But honestly, you got to sweep. I mean, the expectation, the expectation and what Aaron Boone and the Yankees should be saying is, we got to go into Baltimore, we got to sweep them. I mean, nothing less. I don't think people realize how bad Baltimore is. They're not a good team. They're not a good team at all. I don't think people realize how bad Baltimore is. So saying all this, oh, well, Baltimore's this and that, no, they're not. So Yankees have to focus up and go out and win these games. Because these are games that we should be winning. And that starts tonight in Baltimore. And if you want to say, oh, well, they beat us 2 out of 3 last time, yeah, sure, they did. But you got to hope that a different Yankees team out there. And Garrett Cole starts today. I don't think people realize the magnitude of this series in terms of what the Yankees have to do. Like, we don't have to just win the series. We got to sweep this series. This has got to be a sweep. It's Baltimore. It's the Orioles. They stink. They're not good. They're about to lose 100 games for what? Like the 10th season in a row. Yankees have to go in here and sweep this series and get the job done. And you can't take Baltimore lightly either. That's kind of what I'm saying as well. You got to go in here and do what you need to do. You can't take Baltimore lightly. You got to get the job done, go into Baltimore, win these 3 games, get out of there, head back home for a nice 6-game homestand before you then head out and play some big games in Boston, in Toronto, and then wrap up your season back home against Tampa Bay. So Yankees right now, 3 starting tonight against the Orioles. Then you have a little weekend series against the Indians. 3 there. So Friday through Sunday. And you have 3 against Texas. Another team that will probably lose 100 games. That's Monday through Wednesday. So if you want to gauge what's upcoming for the Yankees, you got going to be a 100-loss team in Baltimore. You have a team that's not going to make the playoffs in Cleveland. And you have probably another 100-loss team in Texas. Now, Texas right now has 90 losses. They need to lose 10 more times. A little bit more than, 3 losses. But Texas still very well could lose 100 games this year. And then you got to go to Boston. Then you got to go to Toronto. And then you got to come back home to Tampa. So you got to, if you're the Yankees, like these 9 games, the MLB gifted you these 9 games. They gifted you these. These are 9 games that you got to win. You at least have to take like 7 of these 9 games. At least. I mean, you can't go 5-4 in these 9 games and expect to make the playoffs. You just can't. You just can't. These 9 games, 3 against the Orioles, 3 against Cleveland, and 3 against the Texas Rangers, you got to at least win 7 of these. I mean, 7-2 would be great. You assume maybe a sweep against Baltimore. Cleveland's not that bad of a team, so Cleveland's not going to be as easy. That could be maybe one of those series where maybe we take 2 out of 3, and then maybe we take 2 out of 3 against Texas. Because even though Texas has lost 90 games this year, they're not as bad as Baltimore. Which is kind of how I could see this thing playing out. And how it should play out. 7-2, 8-1 at best. I would love for us to go 9-0, but I could very well see Cleveland squeaking out a win. Because Cleveland, they are struggling this year, but they got some good pitching over there. They got, they definitely got some guys over there that can do some damage. They have, Jose Ramirez. Ahmed Rosario's had a good year, batting .281. Jose Ramirez has got to be in the MVP conversation, at least top 10, top 15. So Cleveland's actually got a pretty good team over there. So I could see us maybe taking 2 out of 3 against Cleveland instead of sweeping them. But other than that, there's no reason the Yankees should not be able to sweep Baltimore or Texas. Those are 2 teams that are rebuilding, 2 teams that are struggling, 2 teams that aren't good, and frankly, 2 teams the Yankees should destroy. But if you're the Yankees, you can't get too caught up in the records and stuff. But these are things like, the Yankees, they should say something like, hey, we get it. You got to treat every game like it's a really good team, but these are games you have to have, especially if you want to make the playoffs. So, Yankees right now are at 80-64. And if the season would end today, they would have to head to Toronto to play a wild card. Which, I mean, I'm not saying I don't want that, but I mean, I would like to be home. I mean, I would like to be home for this. I really would. I would like to be home for the wild card. I think that is something that's big for the Yankees. I mean, I think at this point, just getting in's big, but if we can be home, that's definitely something that's great. If we can be home. So I think being home is definitely big. So right now we wouldn't be home if the season would to end, but I think trying to get that home field advantage and ultimately really clinching that playoff spot is big. Now, if you look at Toronto's upcoming schedule, they got, they won yesterday 8-1. They got 2 more against Tampa. Then they have Minnesota. Then they have Tampa again. Then they have Minnesota. Then they have the Yankees. And then they have the Orioles. So, their schedule isn't brutal either. Now, it's similar to the Yankees. You play a good team, a bad team, a good team, a bad team. Yankees, I would say, are a solid team. I mean, not going to say they're a bad team, but, And then you play the Orioles' bad team. You go to what the Yankees are facing. Yankees are facing a bad team, an average team in the Indians. They're average. They're just around 500. Bad team, good team, good team, good team. So I would say the Orioles probably a little bit easier of a schedule, but they still got Tampa twice, and they do play Baltimore to finish out the year. If this were to be a series, this is what I don't want to happen. And I purposely went to the Blue Jays schedule for this reason. I don't want this to come down to where it comes down to the final series of the season against the Rays. And, Red Sox, Yankees, Blue Jays, all battling for playoff spots. I don't want it to come down to that. I know the drama and the hype and all that stuff would be great. Like if it came down to the final day of the season, if the Yankees win, they're in. If they lose, you need the Red Sox or the Blue Jays to lose, or if they win, all that would be great. It's going over all the scenarios would be awesome. That would be great. But why I don't want that to happen is because the Blue Jays play the Orioles. And the Yankees got to play the Rays. And I just don't want it to come down to, not just because of that, but also I don't want the Yankees to have to use Cole in one of those games. Like have to use him in the third game of the Rays series. Instead, I would like us to save him for that wild card game. Because we need a race out there. That's kind of my thought process. So although everyone's saying, oh, well, yeah, I mean, that would be great for it to come down to. Sure, it would add a lot of excitement. But as a Yankee fan, do you really want it to come down to we needing to take, 2 out of 3 against Tampa? Or the Orioles needing to take 2 out of 3 against Baltimore? Which chance is greater? Probably the Blue Jays, rather, taking 2 out of 3 against Baltimore. Did I say the Orioles taking 2 out of 3 against Baltimore? I didn't mean that. Probably the chance of Yankees taking 2 out of 3 against Tampa, or Blue Jays taking 2 out of 3 against the Orioles. The Orioles losing 2 out of 3 to Blue Jays is probably way more likely than the Rays losing 2 out of 3 to the Yankees. Just in terms of how good the Rays are. Division's completely out of reach for the Yankees. I mean, I don't think it's officially confirmed, but the Yankees would need to go on like a 10-game win streak, and the Rays would need to go on like a 30-game losing streak. So the division's out of question now. And if you look at, like I said, this is what, but everyone could say, oh, look at the Orioles schedule. Yeah, but look at our schedule. We get the Orioles now. Then we get the Indians. Then we get the Rangers. Those are 9 games that we should very well have a good chance of winning. So as much as you might say, oh, or all this stuff, those are games that we should be winning. So, you could say, oh, look at the Orioles schedule. Look how weak it is. Look at our schedule right now. We're getting our opportunity. And that's what the Yankees got to do. We got to take advantage of this opportunity. You go against the Orioles. You go against a bad team. You need to do well this series. I don't think I would have been saying it, but I don't think this series would have came down against a September matchup against the Orioles. This season could really decide a lot. This series could decide a lot on what happens this season. Because if we lose 2 out of 3 against Baltimore, watch out. That's bad. So, Yankees right now, tonight we got Garrett Cole on the mound and Alexander Wells on the mound for the Orioles. Tomorrow, Cortez is on the mound versus John Means. And as for Thursday's matchup, you got Monty on the mound versus Chris Ellis. So, Those are some of the guys. Those are the pitching probables. Tonight, Cole's back out on the mound. That's another thing, too. Like, I don't want this to have to come down to where Cole's got to pitch in that Tampa series just so he can clinch a playoff, and then we don't have him for the wild card series. The ideal situation is in either the Red Sox series or the Toronto series. We win enough games, and we're able to clinch it. Or, I don't know, we come out of those 6 games against Boston and Toronto, and we win 4 of those 6, and we were able to clinch a playoff spot. Then that Tampa series can be a rest series. It can be a series where it doesn't matter. You automatically... I mean, maybe the only thing that would matter is home field advantage or not, which probably would actually then to, decide that, but I would rather just be in the playoffs. Home field and stuff, that stuff you'll play for, but I would not throw Cole out there just to get home field advantage. I would not do that. I would, though. You would have to throw Cole out there whether or not, I mean, if it comes down to October 3rd, if the Yankees win, they're in. If they lose, they're done. You need to throw Cole out there. And I don't want that to happen because you need Cole for the wild card game. Then who are you going to throw out there for the wild card game? I can't stress this enough how big these 9 games are against these teams all below 500. Yankees need to take care of business. Are these 9 games against all playoff teams? No. These are 9 games that after October 3rd, these teams are going to be out on vacation. But we need to get the job done against these 9 games. Because this is MLB's gifting us 9 really, really winnable games. We need to take care of business. Because after this, you got 9 games against Boston, the Blue Jays, and then Tampa. So, 18 games left on the year, 9 against teams below 500, and 9 against the top teams in the AL East. So, you got to pick and choose. It's a big set of games here for the Yankees. You got to win these games because Blue Jays took care of business against the Orioles. Yankees got to do the same. And we'll see how that all plays out. Alrighty. So let's get to the New York Sports Update here to finish off the podcast here today. Another good packed podcast as always. Tomorrow, I guess however the Yankees do. I mean, if the Yankees win, I probably won't. I mean, I'll talk about it, but I'm trying to think. Let's see. What else could we talk about? I mean, there's some other stories we could get to. I don't want to, tomorrow I could always talk about the NFL, but, I mean, the NFL is kind of a, the NFL is kind of, I talk football pretty much Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday's kind of my only really free day. So, but either way, let's get to the New York Sports Update here. Alrighty, so as for yesterday in the MLB, the Dodgers won, Mariners won, Giants won. Giants, maybe I'll talk about them. The Giants clinched the NL West, I believe. Right? I think they clinched the NL West yesterday. Or did they clinch the playoff? I think they either clinched the playoff. I forget. I can't believe I forget this, but they clinched playoff spot, okay. Because I was going to say, the NL West definitely isn't clinched. Because the NL West right now is still up for grabs. But they clinched their playoff spot yesterday. The Cheaters won, Cardinals, or we'll get to that in a second. Blue Jays won and Marlins won. Cardinals beat the Mets yesterday 7-0. Mets moved to 72 and 73 on the season. I think the Mets are pretty much done at this point. I mean, there's hope with the Yankees, but the Mets are pretty much done. As for today, we got the Indians, Twins. I'll give Indians the win. Reds, Pirates, I'll give Reds the win. Brewers, Tigers, I'll give Brewers the win. Phillies, Cubs, give Phillies the win. Nationals, Marlins, give Nationals the win. Blue Jays, Rays, give Blue Jays the win. Braves, Rockies, give Braves the win. Twins, Indians, give Twins the win. Cheaters, Rangers, give Cheaters the win. White Sox, Angels, give White Sox the win. A's, Royals, give A's the win. Giants, Padres, give Giants the win. And Dodgers, Diamondbacks, give Dodgers the win. And Red Sox, Mariners, I will give Mariners the win. As for today, we got the Cardinals and the Mets. Cardinals come in this game 74 and 69. Mets come into this game 72 and 73. This game goes on today, 7:10 p.m. Eastern on SNY. The Cardinals got Woodford on the mound. He's 2-3 with a 4.28 ERA. And the Mets got Marcus Stroman on the mound. He's 9-12 with a 2.87 ERA. The over-under for this game is set at 8. And 57% of people think the Blue Cardinals win. I think the Cardinals win. As for the Yankees and the Orioles, Yankees come into this game 80-64. Orioles come in this game 46-97. This game goes on today, 7:05 p.m. Eastern Time on Mason. You always find it on Yes Network. Yankees got Garrett Cole on the mound. He's 14-7 with a 2.78 ERA. And the Orioles got Alexander Wells on the mound. He's 1-2 with a 7.15 ERA. The over-under for this game is set at 9.5. And 77% of people think the Yankees win. Through all the ups and downs here, I do think the Yankees will win. Cole's back on the mound. Great to see. By the way, just a quick update on fantasy football. I won in both leagues. So I won in my PPR league. Hold on. Let me get to it. So my PPR league, I won 143-122. So got the job done there. And as for my non-PPR league, I got the job done as well. Got the win. 112-93. So that was good to see there. And I made 2 claims. My non-PPR league, I'm going to drop Vikings D and add Saints. That's a claim that I'm doing. And same thing for my other league, except I'm going to drop Ravens D and see if I can claim Saints D. Stream defense is what I always do. Alrighty, and as for fantasy baseball, I'm currently winning 72-49. So, hoping that I can, hold on to this league. Today I got going Will Smith, Matt Olson, Whit Merrifield, Alex Bregman, Marcus Semien, Carlos Correa, Gene Segura, Christian Yelich, Austin Meadows, Dylan Carlson, Will Margot, and Avisail Garcia. And I got Garrett Cole on the mound. Injury updated as followed. Jake Cronenworth finger remains on the bench Monday against the Giants, so he's still out. AJ Pollock, there is an update on him. The Dodgers are hopeful Pollock will be cleared to begin a rehab assignment within the next 4 to 5 days. Fabian Adraya of The Athletic reports. And Cole as well is on the mound tonight. Cole hamstring remains the Yankees' probable starter for Tuesday's game against the Orioles. Brian Hoke of MLB.com reports. So Cole is back out there today. That's great. Great for my fantasy team. Great for the Yankees. And as I kind of mentioned with the wild card, I mean, I know it's the Orioles, but these are big games for the Yankees. And you need your ace out there. You need your guy out there. This is why we gave Cole all that money, was to go out and pitch in these big games. And I know it's the Orioles, but I can't stress this enough. You can't go out, take the Orioles lightly, and think that you're just going to go in and get an easy win and then blow it. You got to, these are games that we should sweep this series. We should. I'm going to be right. I'm going to be right there. We should sweep this series. No reason. There's no excuse why we should not be. It's the Orioles. It's the Orioles, people. If you don't know how bad the Orioles did, watch one of their games. They're terrible. They are really terrible. That's why they're about to lose 100 games on the season. So, if the Yankees sweep them, Orioles will be a 100-loss team this season. And I don't know how much more I have to say how bad they are. So the Yankees, they got to get the job done. You can't come into this series, lay an egg, and still expect to make the playoffs. Because, this is an easy 9-game stretch. But you got a 9-game stretch right after this one that is extremely going to be very difficult. You have Boston and Toronto both on the road, and then you head back home to play Tampa, and that's the final series of the season. And that series can mean a lot. That series can mean absolutely nothing. And that series can mean a lot, and that series could depend on whether or not we make the wild card. That series could also depend on whether or not we get home field advantage, or that series could be a series where we're either eliminated or we're in and we're comfortable in position and we have home field advantage. That's what I'm hoping the series is. But that's all starts here with these 9 games and taking care of business in these 9 games. Because sure, if let's say we go 3-6 in these 9 games, well, the next 9 games, even if you go 7-2 there, your season's still not looking good because, out of these 18-game stretch, I would love if the Yankees can at least go 10-8. These 18 remaining games, 10-8, 11-7, 12-6 would be perfect. I mean, you might need a 12-6 run to finish out the year. You might. And that's a very clear possibility. I mean, if the Yankees go 7-2, these 9 games here against Baltimore, Cleveland, and Texas, then you lose 4 against the Red Sox, Blue Jays, Rays, any way possible, whether that's, losing 2 out of 3 against one or 2 out of 3, winning 2 out of 3, whatever it is. The Yankees might need like a 12-6 run here or a 13-5 run. I mean, that's what might need to happen in order for the Yankees to go to the playoffs. So only so much of this is in the Yankees' control. And what is going out and getting the job done against the Orioles and all that. And then you can focus on those big series and all that. So, if you get the job done against the Orioles and the Indians and all them, and then the Rangers, those will actually be big series. Can't stress that enough. So, Yankees tonight against the Orioles. Blue Jays as well play, so we'll keep an eye on them. We'll keep an eye on how the Red Sox are doing. We'll keep an eye on all those teams. Mets also tonight against the Cardinals. Yankees hoping for a win tonight. That will do it for the podcast here today. Hopefully you all enjoyed it as always. I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.